second session of our five-part series of the fundraising series that we are doing. Uh, just to talk a little bit about uh, the session itself. Give me 1 second. So these are the five sessions. Uh, okay, the meeting is recording. These are the five sessions that we are doing. Just to set context on why we are doing this session, right? Like, so a lot of you have been reaching out to us, asking us on how should we go about fundraising, right? Or like when you reach out to us, you generally don't have clarity on who's probably the right donor for you or how we should go about it. So we thought that why not have a series where we can actually uh, invite experts who have been doing this for time or sit on the other side and know what goes in and out of this itself to talk about the different aspect that goes into it, and then kind of make certain concepts clear, make certain aspects clear in a proper framework. So this is the five-part series that we are doing. We did our first session on how to find best fit donor for your NGO, where we had Rishabh Lalani, who is a fundraising consultant, Sai, who's the fundraising director from Nudge, and I'm forgetting. I tend to forget folks, but we have one more person joining in as well. So today we are going ahead with the second session on how do donors choose where to invest, where we are bringing the perspectives from a philanthropy, from a corporate, and also someone who has sat on both the sides, right? An NGO perspective and as a donor perspective itself, right? Before I jump onto the session, a little bit about us in general. So I'm Shubham. I'm the founder of We Do Good. We Do Good started with the whole aim of on how we can make growth accessible to not-for-profit itself. We started when we realized that a good chunk of not-for-profit struggle to grow due to lack of funds and skill set. And that's where we felt that, okay, maybe we can support them at least in providing the skill set by connecting them with folks from corporate sector who have the right skill set. We started with skilled volunteering and helped more than 500 plus not-for-profits overcome their operational challenges till date. Apart from our individual volunteering program, we are working with few corporates and we run their skilled volunteering programs for corporates like Microsoft, Tata, CGI, BCG, and Mastercard as well, right? Like, so this is all about us. And one thing which we are very happy about is the engagement completion rate. So whenever we take a project, 97% of the time volunteers finish that particular project itself, which we are very happy about. For this whole series, we have partnered with Danveda. Danveda, I'll invite Irfan, who's the founder of Danveda, to really talk about it. He's an expert in fundraising himself. Oh, yeah, I forgot. He was the third speaker in the first session, right? Like, my bad. Sorry, Irfan. But yeah, Irfan, over to you on just to introduce Danveda itself. Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much, Shubham. I was telling Muskan that it's like a founder syndrome. We forget a lot. Anyway, hi everyone. This is Irfan. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Danveda. We use a very fancy terminology to define Danveda. We say that we are an AI-powered fundraising intelligence and automation platform. Simply put, we offer you access to data. We are currently the world's largest philanthropic repository of individual and institutional donors and funders. And we top it off with predictive AI to help you better prospect your funders, and then generative AI to help you, create your donor collaterals, communications, proposals, and reports. We did a beta launch in November. So far, we've onboarded well over 160 nonprofits from across 3 countries, obviously including India. Yeah, that's about it. And the main aim is we hope you take a lot of insights from these sessions. Fundraising never gets easier. But with some bit of help, with some bit of frameworks, definitely it's not a mountain that you cannot climb. I often say that the difference between a nonprofit, for instance, planting 1 million trees versus say 1,000 trees, it's never the difference of intent. It's always the difference in the funding that they are able to get. And these good folks today, they'll definitely help you get more insights. So yeah, over to you, Shubha.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Irfan. Irfan has a product, so in case any one of you are interested, we'll share about the details regularly on the group, WhatsApp group that you are already part of. So as I mentioned, this session is all about how do donors choose where to invest, right? And we have three very interesting people over here. Uh, Give me just 1 second. Yeah, yes. So we first have Gayatri. Gayatri is the CEO of Educate Girls. Educate Girls is driving a decade-long mission to reach 10 million underserved learners, especially girls itself. She brings a good chunk of leadership experience from the sector itself. Before Educate Girls, she was leading A.T.E Chandra, philanthropic foundation itself, and before that, she has worked with Dalberg and many other and TFI and many other organizations in general. She'll be covering a perspective from both NGO side as well as donor side. Then we have Suren. Suren, I know him for last 2 years. Suren leads CSR and ESG initiative at CGI India. Their focus is more on education, sustainability, digital inclusion, and livelihood itself. He has around 15 years of experience in this space, primarily focusing on CSR and ESG for corporate itself. And then we have, and he also, by the way, runs a not-for-profit known as We the Volunteers, where he focuses on fostering grassroots civic action and community-led impact. He has a lot of volunteers doing different initiatives in Bangalore and otherwise too. And then at last, we have Charu Mishra. She's the CEO of Amritam, a social enterprise initiative by Dholakia Foundation. However, before this, she was the chief operating officer of Dholakia Foundation, the philanthropic arm of Harish Dholakia, where they've been focusing on water restoration, ecosystem building, and anything on the environment side itself. So these are the three speakers. Charu will cover a lot from the philanthropic side, Suren will cover from the CSR aspect, and Gayatri will cover both the aspect from the not-for-profit perspective as well as the donor perspective. So we'll start with Charu. Charu is going to share a little bit about her experience and how to go over things. So Charu, over to you. Folks can be add Charu on Spotlight and great. Charu, over to you.
Thank you, Shubham, for a quick introduction. So I won't waste much of a time in introducing myself. So I think people would now know that what I'm going to cover. So I'll very quickly talk about the purpose for which we are here. And you can see on the screen it's written that not every donor is your donor. So that's what we are talking about today. That how one should tap the perfect funder or donor for themselves. So that's what I'm going to cover in my entire presentation, and at the end I will also tell you the stories of my personal experiences that I have had in few in years ago, and now also I keep on having such experiences from organization side. Also I'll tell you what should be the perfect way, or maybe that works for me, one can try it for themselves, that how we were supposed to tap the funders or donors when I was in NGO side few years back. Because now I'm on a donor side, so I'll give that perspective also, but little bit about how we used to go about the framework that we used to follow. So next slide, Shubham.
Sure.
Okay, so story time. So little bit about why I think that NGOs need to pull up their socks when it comes to do a lot of research. So it's fine that you prepare a good deck. It's fine that you have a very amazing brochure, but it is also very important to do a depth research on a kind of funders or donors you want to work with. So a lot of time that happens with us is that we get an email that we have seen your work and you have done an amazing work in education sector, and that's they are writing for Dholakia Foundation, who are not at all into education sector. So whenever I see such lines that is not at all even close to what we are doing, so we see that, oh, this is not well researched organization. They haven't researched about us, that what we actually do. We are into ecosystem restoration, we are not into education. Then why they are writing your amazing work in education sector, and we think there is alignment and a good email, but the gap is the alignment. They are not well researched, they don't know what we do. So simple thing that can help them is at least Google the organization, read their website, find out about what they are doing currently, go to their LinkedIn, the founders LinkedIn. So that's where you get the idea that whether we should approach particular company or not. So that's where I think there's a lot of NGOs, there is a problem in approaching. So number one is that. Second, yes, of course, I say no to such projects, even though their projects are amazing, they're doing great job, but we have to say no directly, because not because they are not good enough, but because there is no alignment. Because NGO has certain sectors to focus. Likewise, companies who are giving money also have certain sectors to focus upon, which is also aligned with their business that they are doing. It could be environment, it could be something related to livelihood, whatsoever. But they also see the alignment so that they can also give it a 360-degree approach to their business, to their philanthropy, to their stakeholders, and likewise. And when there is no alignment, even though the project is amazing, they're doing great job, their numbers are good, the impacts are good, the answer would always be no from the funders table. So that's what I have experienced when I go to a lot of events. I was in CSR box event last year, the same thing happened. I met a lot of good people, but the problem was this, that there was no alignment, there was no research, there was no effort put in knowing about what we as a company do. And then also we have a philanthropy arm. Hare Krishna expos have their philanthropy arm as the Lakya Foundation. People don't even know that, they simply write Hare Krishna Foundation. So that's what I'm trying to say, that there has to be a good research even in writing a 3 paragraph emails while you are asking for a collaboration. I think research could be one part that has to be the on point thing for them. Now, as a funder, what we actually look for is number one, of course, if you want to collaborate with any organization, it has to have the same focus area. We cannot collaborate with organization as a company who focuses on ecosystem restoration. We i have no shame in saying that we don't support or organizations, we don't fund who is into livelihood, because that's not our focus area. We have kept our boundaries that this is what we want to do, and this is where we want to put our money. So that alignment we always look for. Second, if we get the organization who are, like same as ecosystem restoration, we also see what is their vision and how they want to execute. Is it something that is very strict and not flexible? And is there any possibility of changing things? And what is their vision, and is it similar to what we are envisaged for next 5 years or 10 years for that matter? So we want to also see, are they alignment is one part, but are they also in sync with us? Are they in sync with our thought processes? So that's the second point. Third, we also see that team capacity. Are they able to take that leadership credibility? Are they able to understand what we are looking at as a company and the money that we are putting in? What is the way of our work, and how they are also coping with that? So is that team capacity is fair enough for us to give them that amount or that much of task, or the way that we are working? Second, as an organization, we always want community involvement and community ownership. For example, as a Dolakia Foundation, we develop water bodies, but that water bodies is for the community, and they have to take care of that free asset that has been created for themselves. It is not us who's going to use particular farm pond that is there in some XYZ village because we are sitting in Surat. So those villages or those community is going to use that water body. So it's their responsibility to also take care of that asset that has been created to increase their livelihood. That's why community stewardship is very important, and that will come when we have to start involving them since beginning. So when they are there in the entire process, the discussion part, the strategy part, the execution part, then they will think that they have the importance in this entire project, and they have to take the legacy ahead when something has been created. So community involvement and ownership is very important. That's also we look forward in an organization with whom we are collaborating. Last, which is of course very important, is that what is the impact that is going to be there from that particular project, which we are going to do with XYZ organization. It is very important to talk about quantity along with the quality. So story and all is fine. We should have the story behind what we are doing, but the intention would always be there in terms of numbers. We cannot perform without setting a target. So that's the number. We cannot have the vague target of doing something that, okay, fine, we can do this much to this much. No. We should have the timeline. We should have the target setting. And that's what we also see when we get any proposal, that it's been 3 years to the organization, but what are their numbers? Are they real or are they just made up? So we also look for all of these parameters when we actually select any organization to fund, or even for that matter if you're donating. So these 4 5 points really matter for us as a funders to look for in an organization. Shubham, you can slide to the next slide. Okay, now why we are doing this conversation? It's very important because a lot of times people get demotivated because they send a lot of emails to the funders, they send a lot of LinkedIn messages to people, but they won't get response. The only reason is not because they are not good enough. The reason is because as a funder, there is no direct communication happening with NGOs that what we actually look for. So platform like this give us this flexibility to at least come and say that, hey, if your proposal has this many pointers, if you're well researched, if you have the reports that talk about your numbers along with your story behind your initiatives, this is what we want. And if you're putting the right thing on the right table to a right person, it's like you're going to a restaurant and ordering something which is of your taste. And if it doesn't deliver to you, you get paranoid that, hey, where is my order? So this is like that. Very simple, relevant to your life stories, that having a right proposal for a right organization in a right manner will always give you a result, whether it's funding or any sort of donation that you seek. We cannot always talk about, hey, I need money. No, a lot of time people be very direct that we want you to fund our this initiative. That's not how it works. It should be always alignment with what company has already there in their vision and mission. So alignment, I've already said, is very important. And once NGO understands and do a little bit more struggle in knowing about the founders, company, organization, then their path would be easy on this funder journey. It's not always that your project is not good. It may be because we as a funder are not a good fit for your proposal, maybe. Yes, Shubham, you can go on to next slide. So that's why the project get declined, or we have to say no, because of course these four reasons. um, there is of course alignment and focus area, then of course there is less, or there is a gap in impact analysis or the framework. Sometimes budget that you have put in for the project also plays a very important role, so please put your budgets very properly. Don't think that some company has a huge amount, so we should put a huge amount as the project budget also. It doesn't work like that. Company hate when there is an inflated budget for, because we also know that how much money will be going where, because we're also doing a lot of such projects. So don't think that we don't understand. We do. It's just if it is not um honest, if it is not properly intended, then of course your proposal will get rejected. Proposal where there is no clarity on exactly what you want to do and how you want to do, methodology, your budget, and your expected outcome and output from that outcome. So everything 5W plus 1H. There is a rule: what, why, where, whom, and how. All these 5W. This is very basic. We must have learned it in school, but as and when we grow, we forget these basic from school. But this is what it is. The basics are very important. 5W plus 1H. If you have answered those in your proposal, you are perfect for the client choice. Secondly, follow up. I get pissed when I get follow ups daily. You know, hey, what's that status? Did you get a time to look at it? This and that. There has to be a proper follow up strategy as well. You have to prepare a strategy that when you are writing first email and when you are writing your second email, how it is going to be. You cannot just simply write email after email. That will piss your funder if they are potential funders and if they want to respond, because funders will also take at least 3-4 days to go through your entire proposal, understand the alignment, your monitoring framework, your budget, because budget is something that they will be putting in, then how much clarity you have of your project, and is it your proposal is self-explanatory, then yes, and then they can respond. So give them some breathing space in responding to your email. Just don't flood their emails with follow-up emails. So that's why I always say we are not rejecting you. It's just we are not the right partner. That's a positive way of putting it. That don't feel demotivated if you're not getting any response or response to your emails, response to your messages. Maybe it's not the right fit for them and for you as well. On to next slide, please. Exactly that in CSR framework, it's not that you think funders are your bankers. No, they are the people. They will understand the human aspect of your proposal because it's social, it's community. They will have to understand it that way. If they feel that story is real, the intent is there, and they see that outcome will be there, of course they will connect with you. But you have to be little patient and don't feel that they are the banks and you're just asking for the money. Just have some patience and wait for it. If you are tapping the right funder, you will get the money. Just you have to be on the right framework for it. And I'll talk about the framework now. Next slide. And just to wrap up this one, because I won't take much of a time in this, because this is just a call to action that you have to be very honest, and that's why people will be intended to work with you. And here is the framework that I was talking about. That's fine. I mean, this has covered everything. So this is the final thing that I wanted to convey to you, is that the framework itself, I call it a trust framework, because at the end all of us are depending upon trust. So your target for T, it's target donors. You have to identify your donors. You have to do a lot of research. You have to do a lot of networking to understand who is your potential donors. So target donors, you have to do a lot of depth research. You connect with people, do networking, and then try to tap them. Second, relate before request. Before you put an email, just think twice whether your product or your initiatives are aligned with their initiatives, their mission, their vision, or no. So that's how you will be able to establish a personal connection with them. Understand, uh, understand priorities. So it is always about what they are also looking at. Your work is fine, but it is something that is also there in their priority list, that also we have to understand. Show your work both qualitative and quantitative impacts. What quantity you are bringing on the table and the quality of your work. So both of these should be there on your reports, your brochures, your pitch deck, whatsoever you are preparing. It should be covering everything. And last is track and follow up. You have to have the proper database of your communication matrix. You cannot just flood emails in one go. You have to have the proper database of what type of organization, who is the person, what are your research about the organization, and that's how you will be able to see a dashboard in front of you, that whom you have contacted, when, and what is your strategy to again follow up if there is no response and you think that there could be a potential funders. So these are the five frameworks. If you follow this, I'm sure you will be reaching out to right donors, and if not immediately, but in next few months or at a relevant intervals, you will definitely get the result if you follow this framework. Yeah, Shubham, I'm sure I'm not
Sure.
stretched on my timeline, but this is what I have experienced, and this is absolutely on what I have felt over the years, and nothing of a story, but actually how I have followed up on the funders, and then when I was in a funding part, how I used to select the organizations.
Right. Lovely. Thanks a lot, Charu. I think this was really great, like you sharing about that. Right. Like, I think folks who heard Charu itself, right? Like, I think if you understand like what she's talking about, right? Like, fundraising is very much related to sales, right? Like, everything, like how you find your right customer, like when you are trying to sell as a company, and how do you go about the whole process. This process is very similar, right? Like her talking about that when you go to certain fundraising events and you just put the card or say that, okay, hi, hello, whatever it is, that generally does not work, right? Unless they understand about you, the trust and all that. I think that's very important. So thanks a lot, Charu, for sharing on that front itself, right? And by the way, in case you need help in understanding this target donors, feel free to like leverage Irfan's Danvida platform. I think they do a great job in helping you identify that, right? Like, so that itself. Moving on, we have Suren coming in. As I mentioned, Suren is the CSR lead for CGI. He'll be talking about how to approach a big corporate or a CSR, right, from a CSR perspective, and what goes inside a CSR aspect itself. So, like Suren, over to you. Right? Can we put Suren
Sure.
on?
Thank you.
Uh,
Sure. Thanks, Shubham. And thank you, Charu, for giving those pointers. I will try my best not to repeat the same pointers. There are a few common pointers which comes with my slides or my points also, but I'll briefly touch on that. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining the call. I know how important this is for you, so I'll keep it short, crisp, and hopefully that is helpful for you. Uh, to start with, for those who are new to this space, I'll take through what happens behind in CSR. Many of you would be aware of this one, so I'll not dive deep into this. But few pointers on what happens in CSR. How does CSR work to work with the project or with NGOs? While it's not a one person or two-person decision, and it's not one person running everything in a corporate, there are different teams handling different things, and there are different priorities, and we follow. These are few pointers that you could take. So we start first with what is our CSR focus area for this year. That's how we begin with. We plan for 1 year. What is our goal? What sort of projects we will have to align with? What is our global priority? What is our Indian priority? Uh, we define that first before we even plan for next 1 year. And once we define that, we then call for proposals, or we sort proposals, or we go reach out to the NGOs. It works both the ways. Sometimes the NGOs reach out to us. Sometimes we reach out to the NGOs and ask for proposals. Then we do due diligence. We check whether the NGO is mostly the corporates do not associate with religious. This I'm talking from. Yeah, one disclaimer I missed to tell. I'm not talking completely from CGI perspective. The points that I'm mentioning is more from my experience with multiple corporates. So due diligence usually happens from a corporate not associating with religious organization, political affiliation, who are their board members. Is there any media allegation on the NGO? There's a different due diligence team that checks or even goes to the NGO place physically to verify the documents of the NGO. That happens. Then comes evaluating the project proposal. Once we are sort of convinced about the project, then we send it to the committee. We have two committees, which is CSR committee and CSR board, and there are bunch of people sitting at these committees who will have to approve. They only have 1 hour time frame in a quarter or half yearly to understand or get a feel of the project and then approve. And when these folks approve, then we implement the project, then we conduct the impact assessment or any sort of assessment and monitoring. So that's the flow that we follow. I'll not talk more. Yeah, we can move to next. Coming to how do we decide um, taking up project or taking up an NGO. If we are associating with an NGO, there are few things that we consider. There are more points to it, but few important points for us to consider. First or very most thing is, do we have the budget or not? Just because we are a corporate, it doesn't mean that we have unrestricted funding or we have more funds, or throughout the year we have funds as such. To be honest, there is only limited budget, which is 2%, which you all know. Based on the budget, we look for projects or we associate. So budget is the first thing that any CSR folks looks at. What budget we have and what budget is the NGO asking for and how much we can actually give. And any NGO that is associating first, with my knowledge, we will not associate or we will not fund more than 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs sort of a thing. If the project budget is too high, it goes for outright rejection. So budget availability from our side and budget proposal from their side also matters for us to choose. So that becomes the first one. Then is the project or NGO aligned with the CSR mandate, which is the Schedule 7? And under Schedule 7, does it fall under those categories? And also, is SDG aligned with it? And then comes whether this project aligns to our business values. So one example, whether we are a IT company and we have our own goals of what sort of, like how Charu mentioned, whether it falls under that category or not. If it doesn't fall, it becomes difficult for us to work. Then avoiding any duplication. Say we are already working with an NGO on one project. Example, we are working on STEM education and we post about that on social media. Then there are very less chance that we could associate with another NGO on similar project. So there are NGOs who do approach us asking, you are already running STEM, we also run STEM, can we associate? It becomes difficult. Why? Because we are already running a project. We have presence in places. So we might not be able to associate. There could be less chance in case of that NGO which we are already associate with, they are not performing well or we are not satisfied with them. Then there are chances. If not, the chances are very less for us to associate with similar projects that the NGOs have. Then relevance to location. Of course, this is a debatable topic of why do you fund only in cities? Why do you fund only where you are present? Why don't you fund in rural places? Of course, we fund in rural places, but uh, the location does matter because at least there has to be some presence for us to visit the place or be part of the change that we are trying to make. So location matters. If you're running a project for a corporate, have one project in one location and similar project can be in other rural places. So some light touch model can be in the city where city or anywhere the corporate is located, and have a deep dive of the project in rural places. So you should have a mix of both, but don't just tell that we will only focus on rural. There are again less chances of corporates funding completely rural as such if you don't have any presence in the city. Some presence is required. Then domain expertise, yes, you will have to be the expert in doing whatever you're doing. You cannot be, I'll also talk about this point at a later in the next slides, but you should be expert in whatever you're doing. You cannot just be an implementation partner. That's sort of going out. Corporates these days do not want to associate with a someone who is implementing it, and not they are not the domain experts for it. Then coming to volunteering integration, you will need to have some volunteering component in the project, whatever you are proposing for corporate. That adds value, that brings more visibility for you as an NGO. Volunteering, don't look at this like you give money, we will do events, we will do volunteering events for you. No, I'm not talking about that volunteering. Say you are running a project for a corporate, can you engage some of the employees from the corporate in your project? This is not a volunteering event, but this is integrating volunteering into your project itself. It does matter. You need to be innovative in that. Do not tell that I do not have an opportunity for you to volunteer, or there is no scope to volunteer. Then you are not innovating. You will have to come up with something where you can engage a layman who is not expert into it in some way or the other. Of course, the corporate employees may not be experts in doing whatever you are doing, but you need to have that way for engaging. Then other important point, while you always approach, or the NGOs always approach the CSR folks, do think a little bit the other way. If the referral is coming from an employee or a leader, it does matter for a corporate. So have in your reaching out not just for CSR leaders, have it for other leaders also in the corporate. So say for example, an NGO approaches me, then NGO approaches my leader, and then it comes as a referral. Now, how does the leader refer it to me? The leader has to be engaged in some way. So you will also have to look at how do you engage corporate leaders, irrespective of whether you receive fund from them or not. That is another channel which you can explore. Yeah. Next. Sure. Next. Yeah. Now coming to what do donors look for in NGO? So this is the previous point I would like to elaborate on. We do receive requests that you tell what you want us to do, we will do. Or you fund us, we will do anything that you want. So it gets outright rejection at this phase itself. Why? Because the NGO's sole purpose is what? Are they doing this because there is a need in the society, need in the community, and they have initiated to do something, or have they initiated to only receive CSR funding? Now, if the NGO's purpose is only CSR funding and I will do whatever you tell me to do, then it's a big no. You as NGO or NGO's purpose is you're addressing community needs. And how are you already addressing it without CSR support? That matters a lot. CSR support is only a supplementary for you, and that cannot be your primary. You will have to see how do you run projects, or how do you make impact in the community without CSR, and then bring CSR as an additional to amplify your impact. If you're looking, no CSR wants to be a single funder or donor for an NGO. This you will have to remember. No CSR can be proud about, I am the only one funding this NGO. No. You should be capable enough to run at least to an extent, and then take CSR projects to run further. But you sitting at one place and telling that I will not start until I get fund, then it's difficult. So CSR should know what you're already doing. Yeah, that's one. Yeah, move to next. Now, then what we look for is, yeah, the other two is already sort of self-explanatory, but the important point is social media presence. I know a lot of grassroots NGOs struggling to be on social media. Maybe organizations like We Do Good can really help on that. But social media presence does matter a lot. How do you project? How do you story tell? How do you showcase what you're doing? I know a lot of grassroots NGOs does a lot of good work, but is it showcased well enough for NGO for corporates to see it? Corporates, the first thing when an NGO sends a proposal for me to first see is what is your website and what is your social media presence, what have you done already, so that I can be part of it or the corporate can be part of it. If there is nothing showed, then how do we also get visibility for a corporate? So it does matter, social media presence. So do have that point. Moving to next. We have time constraints, so I'm just running fast. Now, what have you always wanted to ask a CSR team? I will not go through all the points, but again, addressing a few ones. Why do corporates do not reply to emails? Yes, there are chances that the corporates miss, or it is overloaded. Say on an average, you get every day 2 emails, and those emails, replying to the emails itself becomes a task. And even if we reply to the emails, it doesn't stop there, and there is conversation that's happening. So we choose not to reply, or sometimes we miss out also. There is a mix of choosing and missing out. So what I would suggest on the follow up is, yes, once or twice you can follow up over email. After 3 times, if you do not get any reply, please consider it's a no. That's something I could give as a tip for all of you. If you do not get reply after 3 times, please consider it as a no. And do corporates only fund big NGOs? No, corporates fund NGOs that is smaller also. We do fund. You can see CGI working with multiple NGOs. And why do some NGOs get repeat funding? Because they showcase what they do. That's the only point I would tell. Why do NGOs get repeat funding? They showcase, they respond well. We fund an NGO which is more than 5 years. We fund NGOs only for 1 year also, because if we don't get enough response or they don't showcase, we then do not fund. And how can we follow without sounding desperate? Again, showcase your effort. Do not keep asking for funding. I'll also talk about that later. And how important is employee volunteering? Very important. If you want to be in the books of corporate to continue your partnership, employee volunteering is important. We'll move to next. Shubham, how much time do I have? Am I already out of time?
Yeah, almost. You can take one last minute to wrap
Okay,
up the
then
discussion.
I'll give it the final thoughts itself, for
Mhm.
few on coming to the donors invest. Um, uh, 1 minute, I'm not able to see the PPT. Okay.
Yeah, you can't
Um,
see it?
no, I can see now. Okay.
Okay.
So final thoughts on when you approach a corporate. The corporate, while they see the NGO, they also see the people who reach out for the project. So is there consistency in people who are handling these projects? It does matter. Why? Because I have seen a lot of people, okay, they send proposal now, and within next 6 months they send proposal from some other NGO. Not a bad thing, I would tell. Yes, you can explore, keep jumping NGOs, but the person who is handling the NGO becomes the trusted person for the corporate. If you keep seeing receiving emails from multiple NGOs from the same person, it becomes quite difficult to trust the person itself and continue associating with the person. um, the way you show up when there is no funding matters a lot. I have seen it personally, and how people have behaved or responded when they approach for funding, and then when there is no funding, and then how do they respond later. When your tone changes, the possibility of the corporate even thinking the future years also matters. So how do you approach also matters. And yes, you might not receive funding now, but the no doesn't mean that it is a complete no as such, because every year for corporate there is requirement to onboard either new NGOs or associate with new projects. So there is always a chance next year. It's the no means it's not now, but you can definitely follow up. And the most powerful follow up, I will end with this, is not asking for funding. We have funded a lot of projects which did not ask us for funding, but they have only showcased what they are doing, and they have engaged or they have involved us in whatever they are doing. So your work should talk more before asking for funding. If you're only approaching a corporate, give fund, it doesn't work out. Yeah, I'll pause there. But any questions, please feel free to put in the chat window. I will answer over there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Suren. I think that was like quite helpful. Right. Like so, folks. I think all of us, right? Like whenever we reach out for CSR funds and all that, like there are some changes, like there are certain aspects which we don't understand, and the idea behind this session was to really help you that aspect. So Surin, I think thanks a lot for covering those aspects itself. We'll also make sure, I think the slide where there were few points that we at least share the details of those, because I think getting to know the perspective is quite important. So we'll ask Suren to just kind of share some thoughts on each of those points later on, and we'll put it on the WhatsApp group as well, so that it becomes easier for you all to get the perspectives. I do see some questions on chat related to those, so I think those will definitely help all together. Moving forward, I have Gayatri like coming next. Gayatri, as I mentioned, she's the CEO of Educate Girls, like one of the like large scale not for profit. They have been they exist on social stock exchange. Before that, Gayatri was leading A.T.E Chandra Foundation, where she was kind of managing the philanthropic arm. And before that, she was working with Dalberg and TFI. So she brings on the perspective from different organizations itself. So I'll pass it on to Gayatri to talk about it. Gayatri, give me 1 second. I'm just going to reshare my screen,
Yeah.
and then we'll go forward. Okay, great. So yeah, over to you, Gayatri. I think yes, my screen should be visible now.
Yes.
Right. So Gayatri is going to talk about how should NGOs generally approach fundraising from a CEO's perspective itself. So yeah, over to
Thanks, Shubham. And thank you both to Charu and Sundar, because you've given me a great opening to address everybody. As Shubham mentioned, I have had many hats on. While I'm today the CEO of one of the largest NGOs in the education sector, I have had the unique, I guess, opportunity to also understand how this works from a funder point of view. The good news is that nothing changes. It's very similar, except you're on the different side of the table. So how do you go about some of the suggestions that both our previous speakers talked about, like doing that research, understanding what your ask should be, what's okay, what's not. I think the first step is to understand who you are and what is it that you're going out to achieve, and therefore what is it that's within and outside your purview from a funder's point of view. When you're looking at, for example, at Educate Girls, we are very clear that we will have no mission drift. Very often, there are funders who say, I can't do this, I need you to do that, and then I'll fund you. And NGOs say, okay, I will do that. Which means you're going further and further away from actually trying to solve a problem. Sundar mentioned an example where he said, there are NGOs who come and say, we'll do whatever you want, you give us money. That means you don't actually know what your strategy is, what your mission is, and whether what the donor wants is within that mission or not. For us, inclusion is the most important thing. It's a non-negotiable. If a funder says, okay, you work in education, can you build a school for boys or a school for urban children? That's a no-no for us. For us, it has to work for the last girl, for a girl who's in the most rural, tribal parts of the country who don't currently have access to going to a school. That is our primary aim. That is our primary audience. And if we feel if we work for that girl, then we have the advantage of a curb cut effect where whoever you work with after that, this program will work for them. Shubham, can you go to the next slide? Right. So beyond just these two principles, what our work is rooted in a problem-solving approach. So when we think about a donor, we're not looking at a donor who says, every year, please come back to me and give me a proposal for 20 lakhs and I'll decide whether to give that to you or not. When you're looking at a problem that you're trying to solve, you need to think long-term. You need to be thinking about if this is my solution, these are the steps for me to work backwards from to get to that solution. This requires, I don't know, 6 years of work, 8 years of work. In those 8 years, this is the kind of funding that I will require. That is the conversation that we have with our funders. We are thinking about if you're working in X thousand villages. So, so few years back, we identified using machine learning that we need to be working in 30,000 villages because this 30,000, which represents 5% of the villages in India, actually has 40% of out of school girls. So with that laser focused approach, we can't then be working in other places. In these villages that we're working in, we want to solve the problem. So today I'm very happy to report that we've gone from 30,000 to 14,000 villages. So while it looks like we've scaled down, we've not scaled down, we've solved the problem in the other villages. So we've worked with funders who are thinking long term like us, who are not looking at, okay, you're in 15 today, tomorrow can you do 20, day after can you do 30? No, they're looking at the other way around. You're starting in 30,000 villages. How do we solve the problem and actually bring it down every year because we've solved the problem there? These are very unique funders, and therefore we're not going to go through a Rolodex and say, okay, from A to S today I will send emails to, tomorrow I'll write to all donors from T to Z. That doesn't work for us. We have to do the research beforehand. We have to know very specifically which are the donors we can't go to because, like Charu mentioned, we don't fit into their purview. And so we can't look for those who are looking at project-based funding. Shubham, I think there's something wrong with the screen. Okay, if you can move to the next slide. So we look therefore for donors that are built on trust, right? It's not annual transaction. It's not here's the number of girls that you will support and here's their photograph that goes with it. For us, it's about the relationships that we build with these funders. So if you look at it, the three things we look for. One is synergies, right? Is the donor's mission aligned and synergistic with our mission? The second thing we look for is the solution mindset. Are we looking at solving problems or are we looking at working in perpetuity? The third is the kind of support that we get from them. Is it long term? Is it sustained? Is it beyond just writing a check? Can we go to a donor and say, I trust you, you trust me, we've been working together for the last 12 years. I need support where I need somebody to brainstorm with on the technology that we should be using. I'm not a tech person, and therefore I need that kind of support. Can I go to a donor and say, I'm struggling with this problem and I don't know the answer to it? And can we brainstorm on how to solve it? Or I'm feeling very burnt out today. And do I have a relationship with my donor where I can say that? And that's really the kind of donor relationships that we build on and we work towards. Next slide, sure. So for us, trust-based philanthropy, it ensures lasting results. It allows us to innovate. It allows us to take risks because we can go back to our donor and say, we tried this out, but it didn't actually work. It allows us to have a very much more positive contributions to society, both for the donor and for us, because for the donor, they are now working with us to solve this problem. And the third, I would say, it ensures that we are streamlined in terms of our processes for both better outcomes. We are streamlined. We have to report on what we are achieving. We have to report on what we're not achieving. And for that, our processes need to be so linked to the last rupee that we have that we're able to give these kind of updates and on the processes and outcomes. Next slide, which I think is my last slide. Yes. This actually was very easy for us, therefore, to then list on the social stock exchange. So here's where I play my two hats, right? When I was at the A.T.E Chandra Foundation, one of the things that we were trying to do was actually promote the social stock exchange. So we worked very closely with NSE, with SEBI, with PSE to see which are NGOs that we can list on the social stock exchange. Of course, we also funded them and actually build it as a proof of concept. So at that time, I approached Safina and said, look, Educate Girls has always been at the forefront of innovative financing methodologies, right? You were the first to do the education development impact bond globally. So would this be of interest to you? It will require a lot of paperwork and a lot of due diligence, but are you okay with that? Her first answer was yes, let's do it. And Educate Girls is one of the first few NGOs to then list on the social stock exchange. What this does, because of the high levels of compliance that NSE and SEBI have listed out, it actually, for a donor, it looks at the the fact that you've gone through that process with a very positive light because they see you then as being an organization, as being an NGO that has high levels of transparency, very strong governance, strong financial accountability, and even in terms of our reporting, we've just submitted our report for last year. It actually is able to show across our theory of change how we've performed. The money that we raise on the stock exchange was one thing. What it's done for us is actually even beyond that. We've been able to build this trust. We recently had a donor a young girl who gave us 1.5 lakhs. And why did she do that? Because she looked at the NGOs who've listed on the social stock exchange and then they said, oh, okay, I'm interested in education. Let me give money to educate girls. She didn't know us. We've never approached her. We just got 1.5 lakhs via our website. It's only when we reached out to her, we understood it was because of our listing. Another donor that initially gave us, I think about 7 lakhs, we've now been able to work with her and the family, and they're now one of our large HNI donors. So it's yes, of course, you list, you get some money for the listing, which you've aspired for, but it goes much beyond that because you've been able to establish yourself as a trustworthy organization. I'll stop with that and hand over back to Shubham.
Hello. I should be audible now. Great. Thanks a lot, Gayatri, like for sharing, I think the details, right? Folks, if you have learned from Educate Girl's story and others itself, I think it's quite important to have the right clarity altogether, right? Like unless and until you have the clarity and the type of people you are reaching out, it also does not build the credibility amongst the donor itself, right? Like, so having that clarity is very important. And there are multiple ways to show that your organization is credible, right? Like PG took the route of social stock exchange and other aspects, making sure your documentation and other things are there are like some of these things that you have to be aware of, right? There are, I think, certain compliance requirements from CSRs and all that, right? Like which you should look after as well. So these are some basic aspects that you should keep in mind, right? Like which make sure that it comes from the right direction itself. So thanks a lot, everyone, like for sharing their points. I know we are already little ahead, like 4 minutes past the time, but we'll take on few questions. So whoever is interested, like kind of can put it in the chat, and then we'll take it. Before I jump in, I'll just quickly share about the fundraising series again and like the upcoming sessions on what we are planning to do. Right, like so, as I mentioned, this fundraising series is to talk about every aspect, and we want you to prepare as well for the upcoming fundraising season, especially from a retail donation perspective as well. So, post these two sessions, our focus now is going to be a little bit shifting towards retail fundraising, but also something that we are going to cover a little bit is on donor relationships aspect, right? Like so, Sureen covered it. Like, how do you generally reach out to people when they kind of don't answer you or don't fund you as well, or how do you continue sharing those aspects as well? So we'll have like speakers coming in to talk about that. I feel this fourth session is going to be quite important, especially from an CSR philanthropic space. And for retail aspect, 3, 4, 5, I think all of them are very important on how do you kind of go about it and maintain that aspect itself. So all the information will be provided. That retail fundraising is going to be happening, I think, on 22nd of July, where we have Giving Tuesday, Jitin from Make a Difference, and myself talking about retail fundraising aspect itself. So do check out for our messages and details on the WhatsApp group and on different forums as well. So yeah, that's all about the fundraising series. I'll move on to questions. So uh, wait, so I'll take on few questions itself. So I think the initial set of questions is for you, Charu, right? Like, so I think someone has asked about, can you briefly elaborate on relate before request aspect itself, right? Uh, and second, many a times certain funders stop, like what you say, funding people, they don't continue funding for subsequent years. How do people get perspective or experiences and those kind of things from there, right? Like, because I think sometimes they keep on bombarding over emails and then people don't reach out. So how do we generally go about it? So can you share a little bit of your thoughts on those two perspectives?
Sure, Shubham. So I'll take the first one, that what is about know your client. I mean, the first question that you have put. So with that, I mean, build connection with your potential donor before you even start sending them proposals. So maybe you can network with them in some event, or maybe you can invite them in your event, hold some webinar or some sort of online activity where they don't have to be there physically present, because of course they might not have much time, but hold something which is virtual, and they can spend 15-20 minutes so that they know you as a person before they know your project. Because as I said, people invest or fund or put their money in person and the intention, and then the initiative and the success of that initiative is a byproduct for that matter. So building connection before even you send proposal email, so that is very important, that your funder should know you beforehand and what you're trying to do, because when you're connecting, then you're not asking for money directly, you are just sharing that, hey, I am doing this, and they might be interested. So from their gestures, from their emotions, from their conversations, you get to know that whether the person is interested or no, and then you went on to sending email and this and that. So know your client, try to build connection, network in the platforms possible. If there is no physical networking happen, organize something virtually, because everything is virtual now, people connect over virtual tea or coffee. So you can have something like that to talk about your project only. The purpose should be only telling your project, not asking for funds or money. And then slowly and
Right.
gradually you just ask very nicely that, is it something that company would like to fund or something. Then they would say yes or no. Then sending an email and getting a response is easy. Otherwise, if they don't know you, they might not read that long email that you have sent and 20-page brochure that you have sent. So that network is very important. Coming to the second point, that sometimes uh, donors or funders or companies stop responding or stop funding. So it could be not only one person decision from the company perspective. There is a whole management sitting. You are coordinating with one person from the people company of 1,000 people, and there is a 10 people in management. So somebody from management must have decided something, and that's how their CSR framework is being created. And maybe for that particular year they might have not decided to fund XYZ project wherein you are falling into that category. So it is not always that company is not interested. It must be some sort of decision that has been taken by the management. That all of this matters a lot, because maybe I am not in a position to tell you the exact reason why we are not, you know, funding your project right now, because I also have my management who is directing me to fund or not to fund which project. So of course, in pool of so many funders, you will also get such funders who are not responding. But that doesn't mean that everybody is like that. It's like good people, bad people. I'm not saying the bad funders. It's just they must have something going around in their company, which we don't know. We are not aware of their situation, their circumstances, and that's why such situation arises. You cannot stop. You cannot blame them for that. You just have to understand and stop emailing and follow up. As sir said, after three emails, stop, because that's your answer.
Right.
That's no. You can't do anything about it. So you just have to let them go and start your process again, because you don't have to be demotivated and stop. You have to again get into that cycle and start pedaling for speeding up your funding processes. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Charu. I think that definitely gives perspective. Right. Folks, I think my team has messaged me. I forgot to share one thing. So you'll all get the recordings and like the deck all together. There's just one thing, like we only share it with folks who share feedback. These feedback is just to understand how the session went, right? Like, so it will hardly take 20, 30 seconds for you to fill the feedback, and whoever fills it, like we'll be sharing all the materials with you and any additional questions. As I mentioned, Suren has certain points on how do CSR react to things and all that, and like we'll be sharing that as well. Okay. So thanks a lot, Charu. So there is a question like for Suren. So somebody has asked, right, like when sending a funding request via email, is it advisable to share the full project proposal in the initial message, or should we start with a brief concept note? And how do we kind of continue the conversation? Let's suppose if a CSR has said no, how do we continue the conversations with that particular organization itself? So then I'll add you to Spotlight. Would love to hear if you can add your
Sure.
thoughts as well.
Yeah. Sure. So when sending a proposal, always keep it crisp. I would say not more than 2 pages, unless it is asked for. Unless the corporate asks for your detailed proposal, please do not send some pages of proposal as such. If you're only initiating a conversation with the corporate, have it not more than 2 pages. What should the 2 page have? Your problem statement. What are you trying to bring solution? And what budget are you looking for? And budget has to be 1 year for a corporate. Always remember, do not put your entire 5 years budget, 5 crores, 10 crores sort of a thing. Uh, Keep it 1 year. The next 1 year is what the corporate is going to look at. To be very frank, while your impact is high, we need to do a lot more years to create impact in the communities. All that is fine. But from a corporate standpoint, next 1 year, I will have to spend this. And that's what we will look for. We are working with NGOs for more than 5 years also. That shows our commitment as well. But what I would like to tell is, when it's a new NGO that we want to associate with, while we can look at the long process at a later point, but the instant one is 1 year. So your budget should be for 1 year when you're proposing. Start small. Do not ask for big budget as such. The moment they see budget, they will uh, put that down. So with small amount, how can you make impact, and then how do you increase it further? Now if we are funding an NGO, so X amount, which is a big amount, we will not fund the same X amount to the new NGO, because this NGO has traveled with us for 5 years, and that's how they are receiving this much of funding. And the NGO which has to come or new has to start small. So 2 pages, keep it short, problem statement, solution, which location you're going to make an impact, and then the budget for 1 year. That should be more than enough for a proposal.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Suren. There's one more question I'll quickly add on. So somebody's talking about how can NGOs represent what they are doing, and what kind of data and things that we actually do, right, over email and over social media as well. So can you share that as well? Yeah.
Social media, I would tell, it's all about storytelling. No numbers on social media. It's about how do you move people. Okay, I if I come to your LinkedIn page or if I come to your Instagram page, can you catch my attention to move? Can you catch my attention to associate with you? I have reached out to a couple of NGOs to associate with them. Can we associate? Why? Because their presence and showcase matters. That it's not just about can only be storytelling enough. No, but storytelling can be an entry point. So how do you make people look at your cause? That matters. So how do you present it to the NGO? It's not about your PPT. It's not about you talking or sending out an email. It's about how, without you telling, can the corporate look at your NGO. That will be on social media, I would tell. So can corporate be interested in associating with your project after seeing your project that's happening? I know there are restrictions. Some NGOs could tell that without you funding, how will we run the project and how will we showcase it? For this, I would tell the same point I addressed. Your NGO should have your purpose of doing it. Without corporate, what sort of impact are you making? And then only look at corporate as a supplement to your project. If you're going with only intention that I will start only when corporate fund me, it will not work out much. So showcase whatever you're doing. That's the difference.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Suren. And I just like to add, right? Like we have personally seen a lot of not-for-profits not able to strategize well or portray their social media well, right? As Suren mentioned, I think it's all about storytelling. In case you need volunteers to support them and all that, right? You can reach out to us. We run programs for few corporates as well, so we can try to find volunteers from there. And we also have individual volunteers where we kind of support you. And we also have a team, I think, which helps some organizations in building their social media and all that as well, right? Like so, I think these aspects are important in general. Uh, I think these are mostly the type of questions that I am seeing right now, right? I don't see any different new questions. So I think that's mostly all, right? Like, so thanks a lot for joining in, Charu, Gayatri, and Suren. I think Suren has answered a lot of questions already in chat, and even Gayatri has answered some. So that's why we are not covering those questions already, right? Like, so thanks a lot for joining in, uh, Charu, Suren, and Gayatri, right? It was lovely hearing from your perspective, right? And I'm sure all these not-for-profits would have learned some bit for sure. In case any one of you still have any questions, feel free to put it in the WhatsApp group. We'll try to find answers or we'll try to connect with these speakers and get you something if you need be. It would be hard to take in-person questions. I think somebody has been asking me on chat. It becomes a lot because we have a lot of people involved. But if you have any questions, feel free to text us and then we'll take it forward. And reminding again, right, in case you want the recording and all, just fill the feedback form and we'll share it across. It's just to make sure that we also receive feedback and we are able to improve further on all that itself, right? Like so, uh, thanks everyone. I think it was wonderful seeing you all, and thanks a lot again, these speakers, Sharu, Suren, and
Thank you.
Gayatri. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
Thank
so
Appreciate
you.
it.
much.
Bye
Thank you
bye.
for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.